Well, good afternoon. How are you? I am a futurologist. Well, you're very polite. How can anybody have such a ridiculous job title as futurologist? Isn't that a contradiction in terms? How can you have an ology, a science of the future? You can't. It's an oxymoron, isn't it? Like military intelligence. Or European harmony. Or as a very sad man said to me late last night in the bar, married life. But the reason I use such a ridiculous term to describe what I do is to make an important point. And that is, just as we have no good word in the English language to describe somebody who studies the future, because the term futurist is easily confused with the Italian art and architecture movement, so I argue we have no language for the future itself. And where there is no language, there can be no complex thought. Now, I said this at a university the other day, and a very attractive young woman put up her hand and she said, "Excuse me, Mr. Hammond, but I think you may be mistaken. I'm in the drama department." I could have guessed that, a young, aspiring actress. And she said, "Surely Shakespeare had a language for the future? Because Shakespeare was writing 400 years ago, and yet his words, his plays, his poetry are as powerful today as they were at the time of Queen Elizabeth I and the Spanish Armada." I looked at this young woman and I said, "Actually, you're quite right. I am mistaken. I should have said, we have no language for the technological future. Because Shakespeare was writing about the human condition. Shakespeare was writing about love, about lust, about power, about envy. But he wasn't writing a great deal about technology. Because although technology had begun, the rise of technology had long started, it hadn't yet picked up speed to be discernible in society. Today, for example, technology governs life and business. We are, for example, today creating something for which we don't yet have language. We are creating a parallel universe all around the globe, in every single part, including the least developed parts, that is always on, always connected, everyone to everyone, and very soon everything to everything, always and everywhere. And it took me about 40 words then to try and describe this parallel world we are creating, this digital domain, because we haven't yet guessed what might be possible for us in that new place. And the reason is we don't have the language yet. Language always lags behind technological development. And I'll try and demonstrate that in a few moments before I start to talk about the future. Now, we've had two wonderful presentations which have looked at the key trends, and I don't think I want to repeat those because I agree with my colleagues. And why would you want to hear that for a third time. Instead, before I touch on the long-term future, I want to crave your indulgence and to go into the past by about 2 million years. I want to go back to East Africa, and I want to talk about not humans living there, because modern humans hadn't yet developed, but our forerunners, early pre-humans who did something very strange. For a reason that we don't yet understand, they began to stand up, and they began to walk on their hind limbs alone. We don't know why. It could have been to look over the tall grasses of the savannah. It could have been so that they could see their prey, or in fact they could see animals that might want to prey on them. Whatever the reason, two things happened over hundreds of thousands of years as a direct result of that change to an upright posture. The first is that the bones at the back of the skull fell back under the force of gravity, and the brain found room to enlarge, to grow. The second thing is that the voice box fell to the back of the throat as the head was lifted. And here, the voice box found room to grow. In fact, we have the largest voice box in the animal kingdom, except for the red elk. Interesting trivia. But as a result of the larger brain and the larger voice box, we developed language. Now, at the same time, we also discovered how to harness fire and how to cook food. And this was crucial because you all know the value of cooked food in higher protein value and better digestion. I would argue that language is entirely virtual, in the meaning of the word virtual in its original sense, which means from the Latin virtualis, something that has power and presence, but not necessarily with physical presence. Now, the reason I've gone back into ancient prehistory is because I want to make a direct link between us as virtual apes and the virtual future into which we are heading. And my thesis is that it is an entirely natural habitat for us. I have a couple of other arguments to make before we disappear into the digital future. I want to come much more up to date. I want to come to the time of modern humans, and I want you to imagine yourselves transported to the caves of southern France and Spain about 40,000 years ago. If we were there now, we would see on the walls of the caves the most marvelous cave paintings, still there and in colour, with pictures of beasts of the time, giraffe, lions, antelopes, hills and mountains and lakes. We don't know why these people painted on the walls of the cave. Perhaps it was education. This is a mountain, my son. This is a giraffe. This is a bison. Perhaps it was a map. Over there is the sea. Over there is the mountain. Perhaps it was just some early ancestor of Bill Gates trying to invent the PowerPoint presentation. We don't know why they painted on the walls, but I'll tell you this much, that painting, those paintings are entirely virtual. Although they're painted on stone, they are, of course, just virtual representations of the world around them. And now I'm going to come much more up to date for a futurologist to a period about 6,000 years ago in an area of the Euphrates Valley that we now call Iraq. It used to be called Mesopotamia, and the industry that you serve changed humans forever. Because of agriculture alone, harnessing agriculture, husbanding animals, for the first time, human beings had time to study and to learn and to use this astonishing virtual instrument. They invented the wheel during this period, but even more importantly, they invented the 4 virtual creations that shaped the modern world. The first key virtual invention they created was date and time. They divided the year into days, weeks, months, and each day into hours and minutes. So they could say, I will meet you to repay this loan on May 30 at this date. Previously, there had been no way to arrange society or finance or marriages or ceremonies. Didn't exist. I'll see you in 20 days, but you might forget and you miss one when you're counting. They invented date and time. The second key virtual invention, absolutely virtual, was the invention of alphabetic writing. For the first time, complex knowledge could be put down on stone, on papyrus, and forwarded to others or to future generations. Previously, there had been ideograms, pictograms, other ways of putting simple stories on the wall or on stone, but using characters of the alphabet to create words, sentences, and paragraphs was the first time complex knowledge could be recorded. But of course, writing is wholly virtual. The third key virtual invention of 4 was the invention of the universal language of mathematics and astronomy, which allowed us for the first time to measure the physical world around us. And the 5th key virtual invention that's brought us all here today, that shapes our world, which dominates discussion currently, was, anybody tell me? Who said that? I heard it. I heard the word. Money. The 4th key virtual invention. Virtual was money, because money, ladies and gentlemen, as we have discovered in the last 3 years, doesn't exist. Value exists. The value of a piece of land, the value of food, the value of energy, the value of clothing. Money, which is the multiplication and abstraction of money, is wholly virtual. Credit means belief. If you believe it's there, guess what? It's there. If you don't, guess what? It's not. And we all must believe 10 impossible things every day. Now, I'm going to rush up to date, and then we're going to speed into the future. Coming up to date on virtual inventions, we have, of course, printing and books and the dissemination of complex thought, but all virtual. You may not think of a book, a traditional book, as virtual. Of course it is. It's entirely virtual. It's squiggles on a page. We decode them here in this virtual machine. Navigation. The world isn't really divided into lines that go that way and that way, which allowed us to start the process of globalization and navigation. Coming into the 19th century, this device, not electric, but using candle power, was invented. And for the first time, we begin to see that we have no language for the technological future.